to thank Tom for pushing me to do something I was considering covering for a very, very long time. Some of you may know, although most of you probably don't, that I am a pretty big rhythm gaming enthusiast. I'm not great, but I can pick up a rhythm game pretty fast and easily get the hang of it. One of the first games that set me in this direction, as I'm sure can be said for many other people, was the arcade and console versions of Konami's Dance Dance Revolution. I can't tell you how much money I've lost playing the arcades. I've competed and gone far in tournaments, both here in the States and in the UK, although I can't say I was a winner often. But what I've been asked to do is pull out a retrospective of this long-running rhythm gaming franchise. But due to the large scope and scale of the game, I think we're going to have to break this up. One video on the arcades and the other on console releases. So here we go, everybody! It's time to get up and dance!
Dance Dance Revolution.
Dance Dance Revolution, oftentimes abbreviated as DDR, is already nearly 18 years old by this point. Can you believe it's almost old enough to vote and graduate from high school? The very first Dance Dance Revolution machine was released by Konami in 1998, though many European gamers might recognize it and its sequels under the title of Dancing Stage. Many international players wouldn't have seen DDR until 1999 in their own countries. Prior to DDR, Konami's music division was best known for their other rhythm gaming arcade game, Beatmania, a game that simulated something of a DJ experience, rhythmically hitting buttons laid out like a miniature keyboard and a small turntable. It wasn't long before Konami's music division would come to be known as Bemani, referencing their Beatmania franchise. Rather than being a DJ, however, Dance Dance Revolution aims to simulate a dancing experience. The cabinet almost looks like an oversized jukebox, with flashing lights, the arcade monitor, and two large speakers near the ground. There are two arrow buttons for navigation and a green rectangular button in the middle for selection of options. However, you'll mostly be using these four buttons on the ground: up, down, left, and right, placed on a metal dance pad or dancing stage, connected with wires to the machine in front of it. Behind the dancer is a metal bar, which initially came standard with a soft protective cover, called the safety bar, intended to be used as an additional safety precaution to keep a dancer from falling over during gameplay. In DDR, timing is key. Select your song from the menu, then watch as up, down, left, and right arrows appear on the screen. As soon as an arrow reaches the markers at the top of the screen, tap your foot on the corresponding arrow. Keep it up to earn a higher combo and a higher score, and watch your health meter increase. However, keep missing steps and you could find yourself losing your health meter until you're finally staring at a game over screen. That is, unless you're playing the game on basic mode, the easiest difficulty in the game, in which case you can keep playing your first song even if you're failing to hit your steps. It's possible to get several letter rankings when you finish a song. SS indicates that you hit every note perfectly, with downgrading letter grades of S, A, B, C, D, and E indicating failure. In the internet ranking version of the first game, you can choose from 3 difficulties: Basic, Another, a medium difficulty, and Maniac, the game's most difficult setting. Each song at the time was ranked with a foot meter. Basically, the number of feet you see on the screen equates to just how difficult the song is. The feet would originally range from just 1 to 7 feet, which increased to 9 feet in the internet ranking versions of the machines, 1 being easiest and 9 being the hardest. There was one modifier that could be chosen by entering a secret kind of code on the dance pad arrows called Mirror, which would change the directions the arrows face on the screen, either making it easier for someone whose brain works differently, or making it more difficult for someone who's learned what a dance pattern looks like already without ever having modified the arrows before. Similarly, there are also 3 modes of dance: Single, where you play by yourself; Double, where you also play by yourself but do dance routines that take you all the way across both dance pads back and forth; and Couple, which allowed for routines for 2 players with dances that complement one another rather than compete compete with one another. Double, however, required that you tap in a code in order to access it. Versus mode was eventually added to the internet ranking machines, allowing you to compete against a second player. You can also choose a dancer model to dance in the background of the screen while you play. Afro, Lady, Consento number 1, or Oshare Zukin. While typically you can only play 3 songs in a single play, it is possible to unlock an extra stage. For example, playing your final song on Maniac mode and finishing with a full bar of health will give you the option to play Paranoia as an extra stage, the hardest song in the game at the time. The music selection in the first release is a small but interesting mix of 11 songs, both composed by Konami's in-house musicians and licensed from the Dance Mania selection of albums released by Toshiba, which mainly features Eurodance tracks. Dance Mania licensed tracks include Kung Fu Fighting by Bus Stop, Have You Never Been Mellow by the Olivia Project, and Butterfly by Smile.dk, or as I like to call it, Baby's first DDR song.
You're the best! Yeah, cool!
The 3 Konami released tracks are Make It Better by Mitsuo, Paranoia by 180, and Trip Machine by Desire.
Okay!
But don't let those 3 different artist names fool you. They're all the same guy, Naoki Maeda, who worked at Konami from 1995 to 2013 until he moved on to Capcom. This is pretty typical of the Konami composed tracks that would appear in DDR games. Many composer names will pop up, but they're usually just pen names for only a handful of composers working under Bimani. If you're a more modern player, especially of rhythm games such as newer Dance Dance Revolution titles, going backward might be a bit difficult for you. Timing was a bit more difficult to gauge in the early releases, and the low frame rate of the game makes perfect attacks more difficult for the eye to see. But despite its primitive nature, the 1998 release of Dance Dance Revolution easily paved the way for newer machines with newer songs, modes, modifiers, characters, and overall audio and visual quality. Dance Dance Revolution's second mix took everything about the first game and just built upon it with a small handful of changes. For example, the song list will now change depending on what stage you're on, meaning you can't even play certain songs unless you make it past the first or second stage. Also, one of my favorite settings, the roulette, was added to the menu, giving something of a random song selection for those who either can't decide what song to pick or who want to be challenged with a surprise. Then there was the step battle mode, which allowed 2 players to essentially stomp out their own dance pattern of a song for a few measures, then force the other player to play the dance pattern they just stomped out. An interesting concept, though a bit confusing, which might be why the mode didn't become a long-lasting feature on future machines. Extra Stage, which was featured in the last game, went away for this mix. This is also the first game to feature 12th and 16th notes, which means more intricate dancing rhythms, while its predecessor only featured quarter and 8th note beats. New modifiers were added, such as left, right, and shuffle, which all alter the orientation of the arrows in an attempt to disorient the player. Hidden, which causes the arrows to disappear before they reach the top of the screen, and on one, which only shows all the quarter note steps, cutting out any other steps that would be 8th, 12th, or 16th note steps. This modifier would change names a couple of times throughout the years on newer machines. New licensed songs include Boom Boom Dollar by King Kong and D Jungle Girls, and Doobie Doob by Me and My. While Konami originals included AM3P by Hertz and Brilliant 2U by Naoki. Again though, who are we kidding, because both Hertz and Naoki are the same artist, Naoki Maeda. It's already here where DDR machines start to get interesting. Some machines are so unique and so rare it's hard to gather data on them. Take for example DDR Best of Cool Dancers, a machine released in 1999 with only 4 songs on it, created purely for a Konami-held tournament called King of Freestyle Dancers, an event which really was intended to hype the upcoming release of DDR Third Mix. Or how about DDR Second Mix Link version, which featured ports for PlayStation PlayStation memory card so you could take your step patterns you edited from your PlayStation copy of the game and play them on a machine. Or DDR Second Mix with Beatmania 2DX Club version and DDR Second Mix with Beatmania 2DX Substream Club version 2. These two versions of the machines heavily featured songs originally found in different versions of Beatmania 2DX, as well as licensed songs from the famous hip-hop duo M-Flow.
Yeah, cool.
And then there was Dancing Stage featuring New Kiss Destination, the first DDR game to be released in Japan under the Dancing Stage title, consisting nearly entirely of songs by the Japanese pop group New Kiss Destination. 1999 would also be the year in which we saw Dance Dance Revolution Solo Bass Mix, a fascinating machine of which I've only seen once at a convention in Dallas 12 years ago. The dance pad, of which there was only one and not two, featured not only up, down, left, and right arrows, but also the upper left corner and upper right corner. The songs were mostly licensed from Dance Mania Bass series, so you have songs such as Love Machine by Ponytown Boys, Freaky by Delight and MC Young, and Get Off by Wizard.
I'm alive, baby, I'm alive.
Solo Bass Mix also introduced non-stop Mega Mix mode, which would combine and mix together 3 songs into one non-stop stamina testing track, of which you could only play 2 rounds of, and then it was game over. Aside from the Solo Mix machines, you'd never see this mode again. It was also the first machine to implement internet multiplay, the only way you could possibly compete with a second player, since it was, of course, only a single-player dance cabinet. At the end of 1999, DDR Solo 2000 released, with similar gameplay to Solo Bass Mix. This cabinet introduced the arrow color scheme called Solo, which color codes different arrows based on whether they're quarter, eighth, 12th, or 16th notes, which has been a favorite mod of mine since its inception. Also, check this out, Solo Mixes are the only DDR releases up to this point to feature a female announcer.
You brought tears to my eyes. Thanks for a great show.
Solo 2000 is also the only game to feature 3-panel mode, which only utilizes the down, up left, and up right arrows. Fascinating! DDR Third Mix, which released in 1999, made a number of changes from Second Mix. Tons of new selectable characters are introduced. Couples mode is removed practically for good, while non-stop mode has been introduced, giving players a chance to test their stamina by choosing playlists of 4 songs each and playing through them with no breaks in between. An interesting feature has been added called Unison, in which 2 players must play on the same chart, with first player being forced to step on red arrows, second player stepping on blue arrows, and if they have to step on an arrow at the same time, the arrow is yellow. And if you miss one of your arrows, your partner can technically step on the arrow to save you. This is also the first DDR game to feature a note skin called Vivid, in which the arrows have sort of a pulsing rainbow effect depending on the rhythm of the song being played. It's also the first and only DDR game to have lyrics on screen to each song as it plays.
I need your loving
You are too cool. Come on,
and I feel this every day.
Featured licensed songs include Captain Jack Grandale Mix by Captain Jack, Dam Dari Ram by Joga, and Do It All Night by Erotic.
Do it all night. Do it with me.
Konami original tracks include Afro Nova by Revenge, Dead End by N&S, and La Señorita by Captain T.
She's a hot one. La señorita.
Actually, both N&S and Revenge are just Naoki Maeda again, but Captain T is a very familiar voice. Recognize him?
Dance Dance Revolution Third Mix.
Yeah, he's the announcer for the game, and he remains the announcer all the way through 5th Mix. Impressive! Also in 1999, a machine was released under the title of Dance Dance Revolution Karaoke Mix. What an interesting piece of history. It seems that only Big Echo karaoke parlors in Japan had these machines, which only had one dance pad, a microphone, and some lights, and had, of course, karaoke songs and words displayed on screen. But rumor has it that Konami didn't give it support when the machine started falling apart and required maintenance, and so now they're just gone or packed away somewhere. somewhere. Man, what a fascinating machine. I'd love to know exactly how this game functions, but there's just not a lot of information on it. In fact, a second karaoke mix was made not long afterward. From what I understand, these machines had thousands and thousands of songs because they were legitimate karaoke machines, and the BPM and step charts were randomly generated. The second mix apparently also featured a calorie counter, telling you how many calories you just burned. I'd love to see one for myself. In the year 2000, Korea got their own versions of DDR Third Mix. The first release featured mostly the same game as the original Third Mix, but also inserted Korean pop songs such as Bakwol by Lee Jung-hyun, Tell Me by Sharp, and Budam by Baek Ji-young. The second version of the Korean Third Mix was essentially the same, but added even more Korean tracks. Later that year, Third Mix Plus was released in Japan, which inserted the Korean tracks back into the game, making it the last time the songs are ever seen. Otherwise, most other changes to the machine are relatively negligible. Dance Dance Revolution 4th Mix, which also released in the year 2000, features a handful of my favorite DDR songs. The song list is finally separated into musical categories for the first time, which is helpful when you consider the library of songs has finally reached 136, the largest library up to that point. The machine is also capable of going up to 5 stages per play rather than 3 or 4. The difficulty, Another, has also now been renamed to Trick. I love songs like Eat You Up by Angie Gold, Kick the Can by Bus Stop, and Pink Dinosaur by Papaya. There's also great Konami original tracks like Burnin' the Floor by Naoki and Orion 78, A Meuro Mix by Revenge. Once again though, all of those artists, except for Sunny, are actually Naoki Maeda. Dancing Stage Euro Mix, also released in the year 2000, but only in Europe. While it ran on DDR Third Mix mechanics and featured a number of familiar Dance Mania licenses and Konami originals, it also featured unique licenses from Universal. Such tracks include I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor, Video Killed the Radio Star by The Buggles, and Word Up by Cameo. I had the opportunity to play this just once many years ago in London. A complete joy to play if you ever get the chance. Hey, who out there remembers Dance Dance Revolution USA? Considering we had only received the first DDR game legally in the States up until this point, this was something of a way to catch everybody in the States up with a number of the releases in Japan, featuring songs from second and third mix. I feel like any of the DDR USA cabinets I ever played were always kind of wonky and difficult to play. Of course, it still had really miserable frame rate issues. I mean, I guess it runs on third mix's engine, but you can't choose your difficulty until you've chosen your song. That's a little weird, but at least you still have a decent cross-section of second and third mix tracks. Aw man, one of my favorite mixes I ever once found at Downtown Disney was Dancing Stage featuring Disney's Rave. But honestly, rave is probably the wrong word. Most of it is Disney Eurobeat. And I love me the hell out of Eurobeat, and Disney is pretty close to my heart too. I love Mickey Mouse March, Eurobeat version by Domino, Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious by Go-Go Girls, but of course one of my favorites that is actually just straight up Eurobeat and not Disney is Night of Fire by Nyko. Oh my god, so like, here's a machine I've never seen with my own two eyes, but I would give almost everything I have to be the enormous white woman playing it for the hell of it. Check out Dance Dance Revolution Kids. Its graphics apparently were crap, but you had cute songs like the Anpanman March, which is the opening theme from the Anpanman anime, Mezase Pokemon Master, which is the first opening theme to Pokemon, and the opening theme to Ultraman Gaia. Each song has one rigid difficulty setting that can't be changed, as well as characters that can't be switched out. I need to see more! The last DDR machine to be released in the year 2000 was DDR 4th Mix Plus. It essentially was the same as its earlier 4th Mix iteration, however, the All Music folder was now accessible, meaning you don't have to put in any codes or dance any songs in any particular order to unlock anything, and you can freely choose any song you want. Also, it marks the only cabinet whose language can be switched between English and Japanese menu selections. There are also great new licensed songs like Cat's Eye Ventura Mix by Erotic, an English remix cover of the Cat's Eye anime theme, Loop on the Third 78 by Ventura, also a remix cover of an anime opening, and Rhythm and Police KOG 3G Mix by CJ Crew featuring Christian D. In March of 2001, Dance Dance Revolution 5th Mix launched and introduced many things a modern player will be very accustomed to. This would be the first version of the game to introduce stops, where a dance chart will outright pause for a given length of time to throw the dancer off, then pick itself back up again and expect you to keep up. Not every song does this, of course, just songs such as Insertion by Naoki Underground. It's also the first game to give you a AAA rating if you not only full combo a song but hit every step perfectly. This is also the first mainline DDR game, not counting Dancing Stage featuring True Kiss Destination, to reach a frame rate of 60 frames per second, making this the first of the truly easy to see and read DDR games. It's also the first game to list songs that feature changes in beats per minute throughout the song on the song selection screen. Furthermore, it's the first DDR game to feature long versions of songs, which could last twice as long as an average song and typically can't be opened up unless you've already played one song. Easily my favorite long version song is Hot Limit by John Desire. Other great songs in this mix include Can't Stop Fallin' in Love Speed Mix by Naoki, No Limit RM Remix by 2 Unlimited, and Moonlight Shadow New Vocal Version by Missing Heart. New Konami tracks include Afro Noble Primeval by 8-Bit, Dive by B4U, and Matsuri Japan by Revenge. By the way, guess how many of those artists are just Naoki Maeda? Answer, these two. Oh, and I guess there was a third combination karaoke DDR machine made by Konami in 2001 called Dancing Karaoke D-Kata. From what I understand, it featured downloadable tracks for a certain amount of money a pop, reaching about 80 total tracks. There are also only 2 difficulties, easy and normal, but while there is proof that this machine existed, I can't even so much as track down a photo of the thing. It's the most ghostly machine I've yet come across. The year 2001 also featured DDR 6th Mix, also known as DDR Max. This game completely scraps all of the music from previous releases in favor of entirely new tracks. Even the old announcer was scrapped and a new one was put in.
DDR Max!
There's also no character dancers in the background anymore, just pre-rendered background animations. Also, you now have your first look at freeze arrows, which require you to hold your foot on the arrow until you see the hold stream disappear. And now, regardless of how well you manage to do on a song, you can't possibly earn more than 50 million points. This game also introduces the Groove Radar, a pentagon-shaped meter showing how strong certain features in a song are, such as air, indicating how many times you'll be jumping on 2 arrows at a time during a song, or stream, how long a stream of arrows will last in a song without breaking to do anything else, indicating you're going to need a lot of stamina to finish the song. The player also has the capability of changing modifiers in a menu rather than using dance pad codes to access them. New arrow modifiers got introduced, such as reverse, which causes the arrows to scroll from the top of the screen to the bottom rather than the usual bottom to top, and boost, which causes the arrows to go about halfway up the screen and then suddenly accelerate toward the hit zone at the top of the screen. This is also the first time we're introduced to speed modifiers that modify just how fast the arrows move. Times 1 is normal speed, of course, followed by 1.5, 2, 3, 5, and 8, which causes the arrows to blow by so fast you almost just need to have the step pattern memorized. At first, I didn't understand how anyone could even use 1.5 or times 2 modifiers, but I realized soon, with a little practice, with certain slower songs that have a lot of arrows jammed onto the screen at once, it's to your advantage to use a speed modifier so you can see each of the individual arrows on the screen without them all being being cluttered together at the same time. For me, speed modifiers completely changed my game, and what also helped immensely was the introduction of being able to sort things alphabetically. Although I miss a lot of the songs from the earlier machines, there are so many mechanics introduced in Max that make it hard for me to go back to the mechanics of those older machines. And there's still great music getting introduced in this mix, including licensed songs like www.blondiegirl Momo Mix by Jenny Rom, Telephone Operator Club Mix by Shelly Peter, and Sobakasu Freckles KCP Re-Edit by Tiggy, an English remix version of the first opening to the anime Rurouni Kenshin.
Still your love is clear, always here deep inside my heart.
Some Konami originals include True, Radio Edit by Ryu Kosaka, Scouted by Naoki Maeda, Firefly by B4U, a group of which Ryu Kosaka was once a member of and was formed by Naoki Maeda, and Exotic Ethnic by Revenge, who, guess what, is just Naoki Maeda. Extra Stage makes its return in this version, but forces you to play possibly the hardest song in the game, Max 300 by Omega. Naoki Maeda! On heavy mode, with no ability to change any modifiers, with your speed locked at 1.5, scrolling in reverse, and no means of regaining your health meter after you miss a step. But let's say you actually manage to not only pass the song, but get a double A on it. Now you're treated to one more extra stage, which is Candy by Love Unlimited. Psst, it's Naoki Maeda! Much like on Max 300, it's stuck in reverse at 1.5 speed and can't be changed, but this time you can't even miss a single step, break a combo, or lose a single hold note, or else it's instant game over. Completely intense, but if you manage it, you've well earned your bragging rights. 2002 saw the release of Dance Dance Revolution's DDR Max 2. Many of the elements of the first DDR Max remain in this mix, but some new things are introduced, such as Challenge Mode. I gave myself quite a lot of time in Challenge Mode, forcing me to learn how to get perfect scores fast. Challenge Modes set up playlists of multiple songs in a row with no breaks, much like non-stop modes. However, you only have 3 chances to make a mistake at an accuracy of less than great or perfect, and if you miss a 4th time, it's game over. Sometimes in between songs, 1 or 2 of your bars will regenerate, sometimes not. You also can't change any settings such as arrow color, skins, or speed modifiers in challenge mode. Also, the difficulty meter, which was missing in the last release, is back in this game with a foot rating meter between 1 and 10 feet. New licensed songs include Little Boy, Boy on Boy Mix by Captain Jack, Living in America by Rose and John, and Waka Laka by Jenny Rom vs. Zippers. New Konami original tracks include Ever Snow by Yoma Komatsu, another member of B4U, Sweet Sweet Magic by June, and Breakdown by B4U. Dancing Stage Euromix 2, released in Europe, functioned largely like a DDR Max 2 machine, with some differences. This release also saw the introduction of Beginner Mode, which is a difficulty easier than Standard or Light. It gives a brief tutorial on how to play the game before the first song, turns off the background animations so as to be less distracting, and replaces them with character models playing the game with you to be a better example as to when precisely you're supposed to be stepping on your arrows. Also, you can't fail, so, that's an incentive to learn how to play the game. There's no challenge mode or challenge difficulty present in this version either. Much like the last Euromix, this machine features licenses from Universal, including Cotton Eye Joe by Rednecks, Aaron's Party, Come Get It by Aaron Carter, and The Vibe Is Right by Ruby Turner. Christmas Day 2002 saw the release of Dance Dance Revolution Extreme, which I believe may just be one of the easiest to find machines in North America to this day. And it just sort of makes sense when you consider its song list at the time at an impressive 240, grabbing a great cross-section of both old and new tracks. DDR Extreme takes and uses the beginner difficulty previously found in Dancing Stage Euromix 2. It also has a challenge mode, much like DDR Max 2, but also features many songs that can be selected at will during normal gameplay that feature challenge charts, giving a total of 5 difficulty settings for a select few songs. Challenge and non-stop modes were also the first time we caught a glimpse at the marvelous rating, a step rating even more accurate than perfect. This game features tons of songs crossed over from Bimani games like Poppin' Music, Poppin' Stage, Guitar Freaks and Drum Mania, Keyboard Mania, Para Para Paradise, Mambo A Go-Go, and Beat Mania 3. The roulette wheel comes back to song selection, however, they've also now introduced random, which instantly selects a random song from the entire song list. This also introduces the new arrow modifiers Break, where the arrows slow down as they reach the top of the screen, Wave, where the arrows make a disorienting waving motion as they rise up the screen, making it more difficult to read, and the speed modifier times 0.5, which slows down the speed in which the arrows appear on the screen, sort of clumping them closer together, doing the opposite of speeding them up and spreading them out. Newly licensed songs include Senorita Speedy Mix by Jenny Rom, Speed Over Beethoven by Rose, and Cartoon Heroes Speedy Mix by Barbie Young. New Konami originals include 1998 by Naoki, Vanity Angel by Fix, and Bag by Revenge G. Oh, come on, Naoki Maeda! It would be 3 years before Dance Dance Revolution saw another release, and in 2005, Europe got the first release with Dancing Stage Fusion. I'm honestly not too sure what, if any, major changes were made to the machine, however, there's definitely plenty of new music to be found on this release. Danger High Voltage by Electric Six, Rapper's Delight by Sugar Hill Gang, and Tough Enough by Vanilla Ninja are awesome licensed tracks. New Konami songs include A Stupid Barber by Show T, La Senorita Virtual by 2MB, and Try to Love You by SFMP. Finally, in 2006, the world would see another mainline DDR game in Dance Dance Revolution Supernova. Interestingly enough, Europe got it first in April as Dancing Stage Supernova, followed by America in May as DDR Supernova, and finally in Japan in June, also as DDR Supernova. Konami implemented new hardware that improved both audio and video quality, and a number of both major and minor changes were made. Aero mods like Little and Solo were renamed to Cut and Rainbow, respectively. You can now also choose to turn jumps in songs on or off, as well as change the color schemes of the arrows, such as Vivid, which has the arrows flashing in a myriad of colors, or Flat, which shows every arrow as one flat color regardless of whether it's a quarter, 8th, 12th, or 16th note. Many licensed songs now have music videos, but the ones that don't now have character dancers on a colorful electronic-looking set of backgrounds. This game introduces a total of 120 new songs for an amazing selection of 304 songs total. New licensed songs now include Golden Sky by Smile.dk, Modern Girl by Sheena Easton, and Wookie Wookie by Macho Man. New Konami releases include Hana Ranman Flowers by Terra, a team-up of Jun and Naoki Maeda, Seduction Vocal Remix by NC featuring NRG Factory, and True Love by Jun featuring Shanita. Dance Dance Revolution Supernova 2 would hit Japan in 2007 and North America in 2008. Sorry, Europeans, there were plans for a European release, but due to other issues involving the licensing of the PlayStation 2, the plans were scrapped. A lot of improvements were made on the previous Supernova, like poor timing issues. Speaking of timing, the marvelous step rating, which debuted in Extremes Challenge and Non-Stop modes, are now on all the time, making it more important than ever to be as accurate as possible in your stepping if you want to get a AAA rating on a song. In previous versions of the game, if you managed to unlock an extra stage at the end of your set list, you were locked into a boss song with no means of changing your options. This is now no longer the case, as now you can change your note skins and speed modifiers. But in the second extra stage, called Encore Extra Stage, you still can't change your options. This is also true in challenge mode. The The speed modifier times 0.5 has now also been introduced, sitting in between times 0.25 and times 1. Also, say goodbye to the roulette wheel as a means of being able to randomly select a song. This is the first DDR release to no longer feature licensed music from Dance Mania after Konami broke off their relationship with Toshiba EMI. But there's still cool new licensed music like Faint by Pegasus, Me Against the Music by Helen, and Trust Dance Dance Revolution Mix by Touch featuring Yoko. New Konami originals include Dream of Love by Kaori Nishina, Volcano by Yasuhiro Abe, and Why Not by Darwin. Dance Dance Revolution X, released in December of 2008 in Japan and in Europe and North America in 2009. Maybe it was a lack of nearby DDR-X machines, but anytime I ever ran into one, I just never personally liked it much. I might have just always found a bad machine, but the newly remodeled cabinets seemed to just be pretty, displaying at an output of 720, but not functioning nearly as well as some old faithful cabinets, with me always having something of a difficult time getting timing on step patterns right, or feeling like the pads were not as responsive to what I was inputting. But then, maybe those of you who have been around these machines more have had more practice and success than I have. I'm also not thrilled with the new announcer introduced in this generation of DDR machines.
Welcome to Dance Dance Revolution X!
The difficulty rating in this game has now been changed from the previous 1 to 10 to an all-new 1 to 20, and older songs had their difficulty ratings changed to reflect the new system. A new kind of arrow now shows up on some challenge charts called shock arrows, which you actually have to avoid stepping on or risk losing some of your life bar. Since this was the 10th anniversary of the franchise, a lot of older tracks were reinserted into the game, but with new step patterns. Tons of new modifiers were added, like speed modifiers of times 2.5, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 7, and 7.5. You can now also choose how bright or dark the screen is, which isn't an outright awful idea, actually. And now, unlike previous versions, you can select options on Encore Extra Stage if you manage to get that far. These machines also feature USB ports where you can save and edit step data to be played on the machine. Licensed songs include Always on My Mind by Pet Shop Boys, Feel by Neuropa, and Coco Soko by Smile.dk. Konami originals include Slip Out by Harmony Machine, Taj He Spitz by DKC Crew, and Ticket to Bombay by Jenna Rose. Dance Dance Revolution X2 was released in Japan and the US in 2010 and in Europe in 2011. The interface looks almost entirely different, but it's not too hard to navigate. This is where the introduction of the Pacelli system got started, a means of using digital currency through your Konami e-amusement card if you have one. Load up the card and pay for your game that way without having to insert a coin. You can still insert coins into the machines to play, but you might not be able to access all of the game's features if you don't start using the e-amusement card, which made its debut in Supernova as an additional means of keeping your own track of your personal best records, as well as ranking your achievements against other players across Japan and around the world. I was never near a place outside of Japan that ever utilized either the Pacelli system or the e-amusement cards, although when I was going to school in Japan in 2008, I used an e-amusement card on Supernova machines all the time. The cards also work on other Konami games, so I suppose they can be worth the purchase if you're near a whole bunch of them. The speed modifiers times 0.25 and times 0.5 were removed. You're now also given the option to select Risky, which, much like the previous game's One More Extra Stage, forces you to not miss even a single step or else the song is over. New licensed songs include Be Your Wings by Girl Next Door, Ice Ice Baby by Vanilla Ice, and Only My Railgun by Fripside, the opening theme to the anime A Certain Scientific Railgun. Konami originals include Shining by Pink Turbo, CG Project by Late Nighters, I Naoki Maeda, and White Rose by Y & Co. Dance Dance Revolution X3 was only released in Japan in 2011. Oftentimes this is also called DDR X3 versus Second Mix, as it essentially also features a remake of Second Mix, bringing back the Second Mix library and charts. In a later update to the machine, you can use the Pacelli system to pay and play a single song at a time rather than an entire set of songs. One touching addition was introduced with the new song Tohoku Evolved, and as the name might imply, the song was created in memorial of the earthquake and tsunami that hit the Tohoku area of Japan in 2011. Rather than clearing the song and seeing the word cleared flash across the screen, you instead see the words pray for all, a very emotional remembrance indeed. New licensed songs include Memeshkta by Golden Bomber, Future Gazer by Fripside, another opening to A Certain Scientific Railgun, and Love and Joy by Yuki Kimura. Konami originals include Beautiful Receipt by Lucky Vacuum, Fever by Sota F featuring Carol Gadsden, and Programmed Universe by Coors K. The machine featured tons of crossover events while it was in active service, including daily events to unlock songs using the e-amusement passes, and tours that brought over new songs from the newest release of Konami rhythm game Jubeat. 2013 saw the release of an arcade machine simply called Dance Dance Revolution, though many fans will call it DDR 2013 to avoid confusion with previous titles. I've never seen one of these machines locally, though I did run into a lot of them on my most recent trip to Japan. It seems that these machines are required to be connected to the e-amusement network in order to boot up, but can keep playing if the connection is disconnected after the initial booting. That could be why I haven't seen these machines in a lot of local places, at least not in Texas, as wired internet capability on arcade machines is not nearly as necessary a function in the States as it is in Japan. These new cabinets admittedly are quite pretty to look at, with a white cabinet, and respond much better than the machines I played in the X series. There's no more encore extra stages in this release, and now, unlike previous iterations, the good rating now no longer breaks your combo. There is no more happy mode, second mix mode, or course mode. In a lot of ways, although the library is vast, the gameplay feels somewhat right back to basics, which I find fairly pleasant. Newly licensed songs include Umauma Speed Cake Remix by Caramel, also known in other countries as Caramel Dansen, Orion wo Nazoru by Union Square Garden, and Zutto Mitsumete Ite by DJ Uto vs Starving Trancer featuring Mayumi Morinaga. Konami originals include A La 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 by Tommy Sunshine and You by NM featuring Anjanetta Mikkelsen. Just who do you think NM is? We made it all the way up to the most recent release of the game, also called Dance Dance Revolution, though oftentimes just called DDR 2014. What's unique about this game is that it's the first time that arcade cabinets could not simply be upgraded with a ROM kit, and instead needed to already have the 2013 machines connected to the internet and have the 2014 version downloaded to it. I'm sure a 2014 machine can be purchased already preloaded with the 2014 song list, but still, no more upgrading old machines with new boxes. The interface now allows you to freely open and close all kinds of information tabs about the beats per minute on a song, the difficulty rating, and more. New speed mods have been added, including 0.25, 2.25, and later updated to add 3.75. There's also a new option that can be selected called Life 4. Similar to old challenge courses from previous games, if you break your combo 4 times within a song, your game is over. You can now also sort songs not only by alphabet, artist, or DDR release, but also by genre. And there are now so many special events held to keep you coming back and playing this release, you'd almost have to study the game and release an extensive video all on its own to describe every little Konami rhythm game crossover event or special time-sensitive event meant to unlock songs or give new challenges. This new upgrade loses a lot of old classic songs, but is currently the penultimate version of DDR DDR. Lots of new songs were introduced under an interesting new license called UMU Cross Bimani, where 25 Japanese pop idol groups were selected by a Japanese talent agency to represent different regions around Japan, and were then featured in the game through a contest event. So you get songs like Captive by Fruity, Happy Kitakata by Kira Girl, and Dreamcatcher by Aikuru Girls. Konami originals include Dispersion Star by Zuki, a musical track from another Konami game entitled Steel Chronicle Vic Troopers, and Hoshikuzu no Kiroku by Hideyuki Ono, another musical track to another Konami game entitled Quiz Magic Academy Ten no Manabiya. Now, I almost let myself release this video before making mention that a brand new DDR arcade was released this very week as of the release of this video, called DDR Ace, announced only about a month ago. I admit that I don't yet know very much about the content in this particular release, but I do know that while Dave & Buster's were originally planning on bringing DDR 2014 stateside in the middle of this year, it seems like reports I'm seeing around the internet are saying that it's now DDR Ace being brought over to these Dave & Buster's locations. I guess it'll be hard to report in until just a little bit more time passes, but as you can see, Dance Dance Revolution clearly is not dead. So many arcade releases and so many changes to the game. Although Konami is having a difficult time figuring themselves out as far as video games are concerned, I'm actually not too certain they're ready to drop their rhythm game brands, and certainly not Dance Dance Revolution, especially with a new cabinet coming to America in the summer of 2016. For now, there's little more here to elaborate upon, which is why in my next video we'll start covering home console releases, plug-and-play games, and other bizarre side games. All the stuff you're not going to want to miss.